session 2, contractions, waves and surges, a little bit about hypnobirthing and the language of labour and birth. So before we look at the contractions, I just want to mention a little bit about hypnobirthing. Hypnobirthing is about being in a really, really relaxed place. It's not like stage hypnosis where you're thinking about clucking like a chicken or doing something silly. It's about just getting into a really relaxed place. And actually, do you know, we all do it every day without even really noticing. I think a really good example is driving along a really familiar bit of road and sometimes kind of like zoning out a little bit. If I give you an example, say driving between Worthing and Chichester along the dual carriageway there and thinking, have I been through Arundel yet? I'm sure we've all felt that, but I'm sure we could all say hand on heart, if someone stepped off of the curb, if a car pulled out in front of you, you react really quickly. But all the time, nothing much is happening, where things are really familiar, you kind of do it on autopilot. That is a fabulous place to be in labour, that you're completely aware of everything going on around you, but you can be relaxed enough that you're not really concentrating on that. You're focusing on what's happening in your little room, what's important to you, because there will be other people in other rooms, maybe some of them making noises, maybe bells going in the corridors outside, you know, people's voices outside. So actually, to be able to just really focus on being calm and relaxed is a really good thing to do, and we'll look at that a little bit later as well. So hypnobirthing, long before I even knew about hypnobirthing, I always thought, when I was thinking about contractions, I always thought of them as a wave. You'll have noticed in the previous video that I often refer to contractions as contractions, waves or surges. That's because in my head I feel uncomfortable using the word contraction because of the association. If I say to you contraction, then often your association, you think the first word you think is pain, and that makes you feel quite tense. So in hypnobirthing we tend to use words like waves, surges, sensations, because they describe what's happening really well without using the language that makes you feel anxious. Because for labour and birth, it's really, really important to be calm and relaxed. And I want to show you why that is. Because to make your womb do the job that it really needs to do, you need to produce a hormone called oxytocin. And oxytocin is otherwise known as the hormone of love, because you produce oxytocin not just in labour, and we all produce oxytocin. It's not just pregnant women, it's not just women. All of us, everybody produces, men, women, everybody produces oxytocin. It's known as the hormone of love, and we produce it when we meet someone and we fall in love. We produce it when we're having sex and we have an orgasm. One of my colleagues says she produced it when she sees her favourite shoes half price in a sale. So by the same token, I'd like to say I probably produce it if I walk past Thornton's chocolates. Yeah, so it's the love hormone. It's the hormone that makes you feel great. Yeah, so we want to produce this in labour, and if you are nice and calm and relaxed, you're more likely. So think about when cats and dogs give birth. They don't give birth in a brightly lit room with lots of leads and cables. They go somewhere quiet, somewhere nesty, where they won't be disturbed. If you put a box out for them to birth their young in, they'll often go behind it. So for you, you have to think romantic evening, yeah? If you were creating a romantic evening, what would that entail? That's usually lights down dim, that's using music playing to make you feel nice and relaxed. And that's the perfect environment to birth your baby in. That's the perfect environment to help you feel nice and relaxed. Yeah? So the oxytocin is more likely to flow in that kind of environment. So oxytocin, known as the hormone of love. What we also need to make our womb do the job it needs to do to open and pull up around the neck of the womb, yeah, to contract and relax, or to surge, is to produce another chemical in our body called endorphins, or beta endorphins. Endorphins are natural painkillers, yeah? So as my oxytocin, I've drawn it like a heart, yeah? So this is me producing my oxytocin, and this is me also producing my natural painkiller. I've drawn it like a cloud because that's the kind of feeling that it gives you, a kind of like a floaty feeling, yeah? And we know this. people, when they do sports activities, often when you've done that sports activity, afterwards you feel a bit of a high. That's partly because you've achieved, but also it's because when you do that sports activity, you damage little muscle fibres, and when you damage those muscle fibres, when they're being repaired, this the endorphins are released into your bloodstream, and that's what helps those muscle groups to be repaired. Yeah, and when that's released, that gives you a bit of a buzz, and people often really like that feeling, of course. So that's why people often who do sports activities get a bit hooked on it, want to do more and more and more, because they like the feeling that it gives. So these two together can work really well for you for labour, to help the neck of the womb open and pull up, yeah, to make those contractions, those surges more effective, with good pain relief on board. Yeah, so these two can work really, really well, quite naturally for you. But as with all things in life, there is a villain of the piece, and for you in labour, the villain of the piece is something called adrenaline. Yeah, now this is our fear, fight and flight mechanism. You can see I've drawn this as a little pair of feet running away from danger, because when we feel anxious, worried or afraid, we produce adrenaline. It's our fear, fight and flight mechanism, and we all know when you feel anxious, worried or afraid, your heartbeat increases, your hands and feet get clammy. That's because when you feel anxious, worried or afraid, you release adrenaline into the bloodstream that sends a message to your brain that says, send the lion's share of her blood supply to the part of her body that's going to help her run away from the danger. So if the lion's share of the blood supply has gone here and here, that means there isn't so much here anymore in the womb area. There has to be a blood supply to every part of your body, because if you don't have a blood supply to a part of your body, that part of your body will die. But if you've got reduced blood supply here, what that means is as the womb is opening and pulling up, as those groups of muscles are rubbing over each other to make that happen, if there isn't such a good blood supply to those groups of muscles, because more of it's gone here, that means as those groups of muscles rub over each other, they don't rub over each other so smoothly. They're not so well lubricated. So it means it hurts you more without necessarily opening the neck of the womb. So by being calm and relaxed, then hopefully what happens is that these two groups of hormones, the oxytocin and the endorphins, can work really well together to help that neck of that womb be more effective. Yeah. Now, the other thing that can sometimes happen, and you see this, sadly time and time again, is sometimes when people phone in and it sounds like they're doing great things and it's time for them to come into the hospital to birth their babies. What often happens is that, on the way in, they suddenly think, is everything in my bag? Have I got everything? That starts to make them feel a little bit stressed. Is there enough petrol in the car? Oh God, I hope there is. A little bit more stressed. And then the journey, with any sets of traffic lights at red, any tailbacks of traffic, then parking the car in the car park. By the time they arrive at the hospital, it's no surprise that sometimes the girls are producing an awful lot of this, yeah, that stress hormone. Sometimes, if you're producing a lot of this, instead of it making the neck of the womb, those groups of muscles hurt you more because they're not rubbing over each other so smoothly, sometimes what can happen instead is that your body can't produce massive amounts of all three things. So if you start to produce a lot of this, sometimes this goes off the boil, yeah? So those contractions, those waves and surges disappear. So you're doing great things at home, but by the time you've arrived with all that anxiety, it's gone off the boil. So often what we'll do is we'll show you into one of our rooms, and then we'll withdraw for a little while, yeah? And have a look at your notes, and just for a few minutes. And often what happens is, by just going into that room thinking, good, I'm here, I'm arrived, this is where I need to be, this is okay now, this is good, you maybe start to relax.